The heat is on across the southern plains, with many escaping the extreme Texas summer with air conditioning. But for a very specific population, there is no refuge from this searing seasonal broil. Fiora Hernandez brings us a special report.
Extreme heat overwhelms the human body. Muscles slow, heartbeats weaken, kidneys shut down, and more, according to Victory News contributor Dr. Jeffrey Barkey.
It doesn't take much from a dehydration standpoint to significantly affect your mental health. Only about 1% dehydration.
Heat stroke is when body temperatures reach 104 degrees or higher with an altered state of mind. It carries a mortality rate of 10 to 65%.
In extremes of temperature, we always read about deaths, whether it's hot or cold.
But what do you do if you're locked in a cell, unable to seek relief, or at times even call for help?
There are 100 prisons in Texas right now, and more than 2/3 of them have no air conditioning, or they have air conditioning in some parts of the prison, but not in all or most living areas.
Reports show that without air conditioning, temperatures inside these Texas prisons regularly rise above 115 degrees and have been recorded as high as 149 degrees Fahrenheit, well beyond healthy limits.
It is suffocating. It's terrifying just to feel like you're cooking.
It's like 120, 130 degrees in there, and people are fainting, people are seizing and falling on the floor.
Mark Levin, Chief Policy Counsel for the Texas-based Council on Criminal Justice, told Victory News.
We need to take the approach that the loss of liberty is the punishment. And so the conditions in prison, obviously, no one's saying they should be luxurious. They should be a hotel, but they ought to be, humane.
The Texas Tribune reported at least 9 inmates had died since mid-June in prisons without air conditioning. Still, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice maintains there has not been a heat-related death since 2012. Amit Dominic, a president of Texas Prisons Community Advocate, says, quote, "People are dying because of the heat, and still the agency is refusing to acknowledge that is even a factor."
There was an epidemiological study in Texas that found that about 14 deaths a year could be attributed to the higher heat. Often it is hard to pinpoint that a particular death is because of the heat. Sometimes it scans as a heart attack or a stroke.
In a statement to Victory News, a spokesperson for TDCJ said, "We take numerous precautions to lessen the effects of hot temperatures for those incarcerated within our facilities. These efforts work." But according to the Guardian, staff shortages make it common for inmates to go 6 hours without seeing a staff member. They receive fewer respite periods, limits of 3 showers a week, and delayed medical response for emergencies.
Heat-related seizures are very common in the summer months in prison. And I don't mean common like 1 a day. I mean common like 3 or 4 a day.
A study published by the academic journal PLOS ONE in March of this year examined deaths nationwide in both state and private prisons between 2001 and 2019 during the hot summer months. It revealed a 10-degree temperature increase above the average correlated with a 5.2% increase in deaths. The study also linked heat and suicide, noting that suicides increased 22.8% following 3 days of extreme heat exposure.
So you've got a heat index of 120, 130 degrees in there. People desperately go off their psychotropic medications, and that can make them more dangerous to other prisoners or the staff. You see a rise in suicides.
Brittany Robertson, an outside representative for inmates, analyzed official data showing the rate of assaults between prisoners and staff. She found violence goes up in the hot summer months, stating, quote, "There is a level of desperation that can cause aggression that comes from having to battle just for basic necessities in the heat, such as a shower." Mark Levin concurs.
The more uncomfortable and stressful the conditions are, the more disputes there are. And the violence within our prisons results in deaths and injuries, and it interferes with the rehabilitative mission. And it also makes it more likely correctional officers will leave their job.
Jeff Ormsby, executive director of the Texas Correctional Officers Union, told The Guardian, quote, "The heat has more effect on staff than on inmates. The heat triggers violence, tempers are short. It becomes a lot more dangerous."
We should recognize, even as we hold people accountable for the crimes they commit, that they should be in conditions that are humane, and also that our correctional officers are working, as well as treatment personnel, volunteers from Prison Fellowship and other groups that come into prisons. So they're in that environment as well.
For everyone involved, a healthy environment is a victory. Because imprisoning people for crimes is one thing, condemning them to a possible death sentence is another. Reporting for Victory News, I'm Fiora Hernandez.
Thank you, Fiora. Tomorrow we'll bring you part 2 of that story.